And welcome back, guys and gals. In this lesson, I want to cover some popular polygon modeling tools that you're going to be using quite extensively during your modeling careers. When it comes to a polygon shape, most models can start out in a cube form. This technique is referred to as box modeling because you start with a box, as you can see on my screen. And then from this box, we're going to be adding resolution to it to create a predefined concept or recreate something from reality and all those good things. On the top here, you can see I'm on my polygon menu set, and then we've got our primitives here, and then we've got some polygon modeling tools from this guy, which is the combine tool, all the way here, which is the quad draw tool. I'm only going to be covering a few of these tools because you only need like a handful of polygon modeling tools to create basically anything in 3D. So with that said, now let's just dive into it, shall we? To actually use the polygon modeling tools, you need to be in one of the three components that the polygon is created out of. And as you guys can recall, we've got edge mode, vertex mode, and face mode. Now, when it comes to box modeling, we tend to lean towards using the face mode because, as in the previous lesson, extruding from one of these edges or adding resolution from one of these edges or trying to add resolution from one of these verts will create non-manifold geometry, as well as creating mesh that is unusable down the pipeline. So if I go right click into face mode, I can go say select this face. I can use my first tool, which you guys are going to be very familiar with at the end of this course, is our old faithful, the extrude tool. Now as soon as I click this tool, you will see two things happen. First, a little dialog box pops up and my gizmo changes. You can use this tool in two different methods. You can use the dialog box if you want to dial in exact numbers. For example, if I now left click on thickness and increase the value, you can see the polygon faces moving out. If I go inwards, it's going to create that broken mesh with faces that are right on top of each other. So in this case, we need to pull it out. Now if I click away, you can see I've now added more resolution to this object by adding an additional 5 faces, as you can see. Now if I go right click again into face mode, select this top face for example, and go extrude again, rather than using these dialog boxes, I can use the gizmo. So this gizmo basically does everything we have in here. So we can push the face out. We can then rotate it by using the rotate tool, as you can see there. Or I can go into scaling the face and changing the size of the face. Now, after I've made some adjustments with the extrude gizmo, I can go back into the default gizmos by just pressing W, for example, to get into my move tool. And you saw the gizmo change back. So now from here, I can go again and do some shaping using our default or our normal manipulation tool. So if I go to scale mode, for example, I can go scale this face flat, put it there. It's creating a face anomaly there, so I'm already seeing there's a problem, so I'm going to do that. Okay, now I've got a face there. Now again, I can go back into extrude, pull it out, rotate it, and I can just carry on doing this until I get to what I need to do. So rather than keeping going up to our menu bar here, I can press G on my keyboard, which will repeat the last tool that I've used, which in my case is the extrude tool. So I can press G, press W, move the face, rotate it, press G again, and then move the face, rotate, maybe scale it down, and then press G again, and so on and so forth. And as you can see, I'm making something with a weird handle, it seems, okay, or misshapen elephant. So that's the extrude tool that we will be using extensively in the modeling process in creating 3D assets. Because as you can see, it's the most effective tool to add resolution as well as volume to your objects. Another thing is you also do not need to rely on your options up here or the tools in your toolbar. If I go to face mode and select a face and shift right click, we have all the polygon modeling tools that we can do to a face available to us in this hotbox menu that pops up. As you can see, there's our extrude tool, so I can go click extrude, press W, pull out this face, scale it down, and have more resolution. I'm going way off kilter there. So we got another way of accessing our polygon modeling tools. Now with this shape going the way it is going, I would like to just see how it would look if I would to have smoothed it, meaning adding a lot more geometry in a sense of subdividing every one of these faces twice, meaning each polygon face that we see here becomes 4 polygon faces. So by having the object selected and pressing 3 on my keyboard, you can see this is the smooth mesh preview that we have access to see what an object would look like if we needed to subdivide it. But again guys, this is just a tool to preview your mesh. Never save your model with the smooth preview enabled or render using the smooth preview. You can potentially model from here. So if I go here and then shift or select that face and click extrude, I can move it and I can kind of see what I'm going to get if I added more resolution this way. If I have multiple faces, press G and push that up, you can see things are working quite nicely. But by modeling like this and doing an extrude like I just did here, for example, so I'm going to just undo so I get back to my basic shape, and I'm just going to click the extrude button. It looks like, say for example, you wanted it to have a flat spot like it has here, and it looks fine in smooth preview mode. But if I go back into my modeling mode or my faceted view, you can see it doesn't look like it added extra resolution. But if I go into vertex mode and just hover over one of these vertices and just click once and use my move tool and move this guy up, you can see I created a 0 space face, meaning a polygon face that takes up 0 pixels on the screen. As you can see here, it doesn't look like we have any faces, but in actual fact we have faces where the edges were right on top of each other, which created a face that is going to cause a lot of problems down the line, because in this mode you don't see it, but in smooth preview mode we're getting a result that we desire, but we don't see the error in the actual topology. So if I just had to undo this again, so we get back to our original shape and go back to 1, I want to now get that same flat shape. I'm going to click the extrude tool, and as you click the extrude tool, the rule is extrude and then move, because that will keep you from having 0 space faces. So I'm going to use what is referred to as the offset here, and if I click and drag that, you can see it looks like the faces are scaling inwards, which now adds resolution, but we can now actually see the faces. So this is a correct piece of geometry. And the great thing about this is if I go to smooth preview mode, I'm getting that flat face representation that I wanted to get in this model, for example. But back into faceted view, I can see those faces. So again guys, rule of thumb, when you click extrude, you need to move that face. Else you're going to land up with a lot of problems later down the line, and you're going to be pulling your hair out trying to figure out what's going on. Okay, now that I've made this weird, I don't even know what this is. It looks like a broken cup. So I'm going to go into object mode and just delete this guy so I can start afresh. Make another cube, scale this guy up, and let's move it above the grid, because we always model above the grid. Now the next tool I want to show you is the bevel tool. The bevel tool is the tool that you use to create a rounded look on these sharp edges, because when it comes to modeling, you cannot leave your polygon objects with these perfectly 90-degree edges, because in reality, this doesn't exist. This is how someone can see that your model is actually CG and can't be fooled into you having created a photoreal render. So I need to now create a bevel so that there's a tiny face here that will pick up light, then which in turn will create reflection. So I'm just going to grab this one edge, and here's the bevel tool right here, and I'm going to click this guy. As you can see, it creates now a polygon face, because it literally just like exploded that edge into 2 edges. Now again, I'm greeted with a pop-up window. In here we can play with the fraction. If I hold down control, I can get more controlled movement, pardon the pun, on my moving of this tool, because if I left click, as you can see, if I just hover over the words, I get this little screen slider. So if I hold down control and left click, I can change how big that bevel is, as well as I can go add in segments. So as you can see now, I've created a nice rounded corner. Now again, if I add more segments, not depth, but segments, you can see you can add more resolution and in turn create more higher geometry. As you can see now, I've created an n-gon, which again is a face with more than 4 edges. I'm just going to undo this so I can get back to a non-beveled edge. So now if I want, for example, just to take this cube, I can select all the edges, click bevel, and you can see Maya is trying to figure out what's happening. But again, now it's created triangles. A simple fix for this at this level of detail, just add another segment and you'll see Maya fix those little triangles by adding more subdivisions to my cube. Now this looks like a very plush cube. If I want a cube that looks more rigid and hard, I would now play with the fraction and get that fraction to be smaller, like so. And now if I go back to object mode and let's go just disable wireframe on shaded, you can now see that highlight that I was referring to that you would pick up in any object in real life. Even the edge of a blade will have a bevel. Even though it's very minute, it still has a bevel. That's how it reflects sun and gets a cool little sheen that you see. I just make another cube just to show you the difference. Make this cube this size and just give it up here. Just deselect it. You can see the one edge looks weirdly CG and the other edge looks a lot more refined. So this is another tool that you're going to be using a lot when you need to create more refined hard surface model object. I'm going to take these 2 cubes and get rid of them again, and I'm going to go bring back a cube and scale it up, and then I want to talk about subdividing. So as mentioned before, we have our smooth preview. As you can see, I'm toggling between smooth preview and non-smooth preview, which is 1 on my keyboard and then 3 on my keyboard. So by pressing 3, Maya subdivides each one of these faces 3 times, which makes the 6-sided cube actually be 96 faces in total. So if I press 1 on my keyboard, the correct way to subdivide your mesh is to physically subdivide it. And up here in our menu, you've got a button, which is the subdivide. You can see it takes the low res mesh into a high res mesh, and then we got the reverse option to reduce. So if I take this cube and subdivide it once, you can see we got a sphere shape going. Now if I go again and add another subdivision and then one more subdivision, this is what happens when you do smooth mesh preview. This is what Maya actually generates in the background, and it doesn't look like that to you because you only see the main edges of the cube. When I go press 1, you can only see the main edges of the cube. But in actual fact, like I said, it creates this. So just keep that in mind when you use that smooth preview mode. It is again a preview mode. Now let's see if Maya can take this guy down resolution. So if I go this guy, now I can say I want to reduce the topology and start saying let's reduce it by like 80% or 90%. There we go. If we're back at like 97%, we are back at our cube. Delete this cube. And last but not least is one of the other most used tools in Maya. In this is the insert edge loop tool or the multi-cut tool. So with my object selected, I go click this little button up here. As you can see, it's the multi-cut tool. It shows, looks like a little knife. I click this guy, and as you can see, my mouse pointer changes to a knife. Maya tries to snap to the vertices of the corners here because that's what it likes to do. But if I now, for example, want to cut this guy in half, I can now go left click there. As you can see, it creates a vert. Left click here, and then left click here, and I can just follow my way around. And now if I go right click, you'll see Maya has added that resolution. Now I'm left with an n-gon, so I can just keep on using the tool, and I can go connect that vertex to that vertex, which now fixed that n-gon problem we had. Now the multi-cut tool has little shortcut keys that you can have access to as well. If I hover over my geometry like this and then hold down the control key, it shows you a preview of an edge loop that you can add into your object. So for example, I can go and say I would like one here, click once, and it cuts all the way around this guy. And if I hold down control again, cut this guy, adds one all the way around. And And then if I hold Control down again and middle mouse click, it drops an edge loop throughout the entire object, but in the center of two other edges. So in this case, this edge loop and this edge loop, it dropped down this guy right down the middle of the two outer ones. Now by adding these resolution lines to it, if I press 3, you can see I'm getting some sort of cylinder slash bread loaf shape. So the reason we're getting this bread loaf shape is the way we positioned our edge loops. So how Maya sees this is if I go and double click that edge and go Control backspace, it removes the edge as well as the vertices. If I just press delete, it looks like it did the same job, but if I go to vertex mode, you can see it left these floating vertices, which is a big no-no, because again, this will result in weird topology. As you can see here, Maya is pulling funny on those corners rather than having this nice smooth rounded shape here. So again, to fix this is I just go into vertex mode, select everything that I see in this case and just press delete, and Maya gets rid of those floaty edges. So now I want to quickly explain what Maya does when you smooth mesh, and as well the reasoning behind adding edge loops close to other edges. These are referred to as containment edges or holding edges, because what Maya does is when you press 3, it smooths out the mesh, but it tries and averages out the distance between one vertex and the other. So if I go to vertex mode and grab this guy and that guy and press 3, create a smooth transition between the two verts by bending the edge. But on this side, it's not doing that because my verts are very close, therefore the transition is going to be very sharp. As you can see, they are very close, so the transition is sharp, which results in a more rounded but more controlled corner, where this one is a more gradual slope into the other vertex. Now if I go to edge mode, I just want to grab this edge and press 3 again. Now if I pull this edge back, you can see it smooth this side down. If I push it closer, it sharpens it up. But again, if I go use this and try and get it super sharp and then press 1, you'll see I'm actually overshooting, which creates that weird anomaly with faces on faces. So again, I would do this in the facet view or the non-smooth preview mode and get those edges as close as possible, and then press 3 on my keyboard and see the result that I get. So if I press 1 again, I can go back into my multicut, hold down Control, drop a edge loop very close to that guy by left clicking, so I can go do that close as I humanly can get to that point. I can go into edge mode, double click it and move it up as close as possible. Now you can see we've manually made a beveled edge, which is pretty interesting. So if I press 3 now, you can see I've got a very sharp corner up here and a rounded corner down here, because on top here I've got two holding edges that holds this corner, this edge and that edge, but at the bottom I only have got one holding edge, which is this guy here. And on this side, of course, I've got no holding edges. That's why it's going all round. So with those tools, you can pretty much model anything in Maya, because from this shape I can go and let's see here, let's start with a new cube. So for fun, let's just go and create a cube. I can go shift, I can go right click, grab that face. If I hold down shift, if you see I hover over my move tool, I have quick access to my extrude, so I can extrude that up, grab that face, extrude that out, grab that face, extrude that out. Now I've got a weird shape. If I press 3, I'm getting kind of what I want, I guess, but I would prefer harder edges, so I can grab my multi-cut tool, hold down Control, drop an edge loop in there, possibly one in there, wrong place, so tap Z to undo, drop one in there. Now I've got more holding edges and I'm getting some sort of weird shape here. Again, press G to bring back my multi-cut, drop an edge loop in there, drop one in there, drop one in here, and I can possibly drop one in there. And I'm ending up with a shape that has some hard edges as well as some rounded edges. Now this is how we start playing around by just adding resolution. The only two tools I'm using is the extrude and multi-cut tool. So I'm going to cover one more tool that's going to be useful to you guys, and that is, for example, let's say I've added resolution, resolution, but I've added resolution in a section that I don't need resolution. For example, I want to contain the sharpness in here, but I don't want these edges to go all the way around because it generates more topology than I really need, because there are 2 extra faces back here that I don't need because I like the shape that it's generating, but these edges don't actually contribute to that silhouette I'm getting. So I would like to merge down these vertices so that these 3 edges come down into one single vertex here. I'm going to go right click and go to vertex mode, select that vertex, then shift right click, and then we got a tool called merge vertex, which will go to a second hotbox, and then we got target well. Now with that vertex selected, I can go click and drag it to that guy, and then this guy to that guy, and now you can see I've made one vertex. I'm going to leave the other side for now just to show you what happened. I'll go back to object mode and press 3. As you can see, it doesn't change the silhouette too much in the sense from the top here, but it's freaking out because now I've created, as you guys can recall, a high valency vertex or pole, because I've got 6 edges converging onto this single vertex, which is causing a problem, as well as 2 triangles. So I need to solve this conundrum that I'm faced with. So I'm going to press G again to get my target well tool. I'm going to take this vert, merge it down, take that vert, merge it down. Now I've got the same problem on both sides of having 2 triangles. So if I go grab this edge and just press delete, it still looks like a triangle, but it's a polygon with 4 sides. So it's got 1, 2, 3, 4 sides. That guy there, a 4-sided polygon, even though it looks like a triangle. Back in here, delete that edge. If I press 3, you can see I'm still left with my rounded shape and the tight corner here, but I've saved myself 2 polygon faces that could potentially go add an additional 16 faces later down the line. So with the target well tool and the extrude tool and the multicut tool, you can do a lot in Maya. I'm just going to delete this bad boy. So with those tools, I would like you just to explore and create random shapes and maybe recreate something that you see on your desk, or maybe you can just go Google some like household appliances like a kettle and that kinds of stuff to just recreate and play, but only using the extrude and multicut tool and merging of vertices. So with that said, I'm going to end this lesson off here. I'm going to catch you in the next lesson where I'm going to be covering some UI tools that you can enable that's going to help you in your modeling pipeline. So catch you in the next lesson.